Well, hello again. It's Trudy here from Hot Patterns with part 2 of our marvellous Red-Hot Mama sew-along. If you joined us for part 1, and you really should have, we've already prepared all our pieces and now we are ready to construct the body of the tote. Now, before we actually put the body of the tote together, we need to do our handles. We need to make them, we need to apply them. You can, of course, decide to go your own sweet way on this and go, oh, I'll put them on later. You can do that, but it's going to make your life a lot harder than it needs to be. So, trust me when I tell you, do the handles first, get them out of the way, and you'll be a lot happier. So, I'm going to show you 3 different methods of making handles for this. One of them is the method that's explained in the pattern, so obviously you need to see that. But there's 2 other methods that I'm going to show you, and this is not exhaustive by any means. There's lots of other things you can do, but these are the 2 main ones that kind of work really, really well. And they're very good if you want a contrast handle, if you want a leather handle on a fabric bag or whatever. They'll just, they switch it up a little bit and give you more options. So when we edit this, I'm going to caption them so you'll see which method is which. And we're going to start with the simplest method of them all. So, the simplest method of making handles for this particular tote is this. You buy them. That's the simplest thing to do. I actually got one of our local cobbler belt making stores here to make me some handles, and they're really just plain strips of leather. And I will obviously bring the camera in and zoom in and show you exactly how they work. But they're really just simple, they're not finished in any way, they just cut nicely, that's all they are. And what I do with them, and again you'll see this when you come in very closely, I position them, obviously going by the marks on the pattern, little dot of glue behind, put some tape on top to hold them, and then when they're dry, then I go ahead and I stitch them on. Now, this is a really good thing to do if you really are just not in the mood to make some handles. Sometimes you're not. You can also do this with purchased purse handles. Don't bother going to your local craft emporium for these because they have a very, very limited selection. Your best place to find them is on Etsy, it really is. Lots of people sell them. Sometimes they're really gorgeous, sometimes not so much. This particular tote wants handles, I'm going to say about 26 inches in total. You can go a little longer, you can go a little shorter, it's really up to you. But you can buy beautifully made purse handles if you want to. These are ones I had made, pretty gorgeous. You can see they look really good on the iCat canvas, so they look lovely. So that's method number 1. So when you're doing these handles, these very kind of flat, just a simple strip of leather, I found it best to put a little dot of glue behind and position them up, and then I put some tape on, just some Scotch tape, while the glue dried. Once the glue was dried, obviously take it off, you'll be sewing through that, and then I just sewed around the edges, and you can't actually see this because the passage of the presser foot has removed the chalk, but I marked in chalk where I was going to be stitching, all the way around there. So you just have to take it really slowly. Obviously I used top stitch thread, I used a leather needle, and I used a Teflon foot because I'm going over leather. But you just take it really slowly all the way around the edge, and that's your handles, your flat, simple leather handles attached. Now, method number 2 for your handles. This is kind of a cheats way of doing a handle, but I'm doing it for a reason. When we put the first part of this out, we had some questions on our Facebook sewing group saying, how do you make this into a crossbody bag? Because I really like to use it like that. And here is a kind of fail-safe way of doing it. What you do is you use some purchased belts, like these ones. I will zoom in very shortly and show you exactly the kind of them, but what you want is something that's really plain. This one hasn't got any stitching on it, it's plain, faux leather. It's just got the holes punched in it here, it's got the buckle. I got these from Walmart, they were $6.50 each, which is a lot less expensive than actually buying ready-made purse handles, let me tell you. And the trick to doing this is to buy them the biggest size you can. 3X if you can get it, 2X if not, because that's going to have the extra length that can go across your shoulder. Now, if you're using belts, I've actually got 2 pairs here, and one I'm going to use and one I'm just going to chit-chat about. The plain one is fantastic because you literally just chop it where you want it to be chopped and stitch it on pretty much like the last handles I showed you, the plain leather ones, and you're good to go. but I'm going to show you these ones here, these woven ones, because there's a few little tricks you want to learn with them, and also how to measure off how long you want your handles to be and where you actually cut your belt to achieve. Okay, so let's quickly chit chat about using these belts. These are a kind of woven faux leather, and they look pretty good. And in fact, I'm going to show you how to apply these as well onto our denim bag, because it's a nice contrast and you'll see the difference. You'll see how they look against the denim. So I bought here, I can only get 2XL on these. Would have bought 3XL if I could, but I couldn't. And I've got obviously a pair of them. Now, here's how you do it. Buckle your belt. I've sort of measured off from the other belt here, the middle hole, about that much from the end. It's not a very technical measure, is it? About that much, but it is. And they just go through the weaving here. There's no holes in these belts at all. And I've put it through the buckle, so you can see the tab of it is going down this way. And then I've measured from the prong all the way around to get my measurement. My measurement is 46 inches. And then you have to divide your measurement by 3. I know, nice little bit of math for you. If you divide it by 3, you get 15 1/3. We're going to call it 15 1/2 for the heck of it. So you measure from your prong 1/3 of the way down. Follow the arrow that the tab gives you, that direction, and you'll come to here. Now, you might be able to hear that. You'll see it, I'll bring it in close up. I've marked a little bit on here, which again you'll need to see close up. That's my 3rd mark, and I've put some Scotch tape on the other side to kind of hold it all together. So I'm going to go and stitch this either side of the line and chop it, and then I've got my crossbody length strap. So I don't know if you can see here, I've put a little mark where the cut line is. Well, that's strictly speaking the cut line, and what I'm going to do now is I've also put some tape on the other side to just hold it. I'm going to go away and do a couple of lines of stitching backwards and forwards either side of this line, maybe about 1/2 inch either side, and then cut it here, because that is going to give me a really nice finish, and it's going to keep all these woven pieces together. Okay, when we're using belts, we may want to, and certainly for a crossbody length, we may want to finesse it a little bit. Here's how we do it. This is your top edge, okay? Base of the tote is down here. Here is your mark. This is the outside bottom corner of where your handle should be. And I've drawn a little line here, about 1 inch below. And that's where I'm going to put the cut end of my belt, which is going to look pretty awful. Yes, I know. However, we have tricks. See what I mean in a moment. All right, so yes, in amongst all the Scotch tape, which I put because it's easier to hold things that are made out of leather with Scotch tape than it is with pins. Pins will leave holes, we don't want that. I've roughly Scotch taped this on with my new markings here. That's the outer edge. That's the inner edge, and I've dropped it down 1 inch. Now, I've put this here, and you can see it's going to look terrible if we just kind of top stitch it. It's going to look awful. We don't mind that though, because we have a trick up our sleeve. Okay, so now I'm almost ready to attach my crossbody straps, my extra long straps made from a belt. And I'll show you them close up, but this is what they basically look like. I've Scotch taped them into position, as you can see. Tab of the belt always pointing downwards, so you'll have 2 that are exactly the same. Of course, when they're worn, one buckle will be here and one buckle will be there, so it'll look really good. Okay, so we need to now go in and kind of top stitch these bottoms of these belts. It's not going to look pretty, it's really going to look quite horrible. However, I have a cunning solution. It's really, really nice. What I've done is I've cut a strip of my denim that's the width of the belt, plus I'm going to say another 1.5 inches. And I press the edges under about 3/8 of an inch both sides. So it'll end up about 3/4 of an inch wider than the belt in total. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to cut it into 4, because I've got 4 ends to do. Now I can't tell you exactly what dimensions you should do this, because you know your belts are going to be different from my belts. So I think, like I said, you just want it to finish 3/4 of an inch wider than your belt. So I've got 4 pieces here, and what we're going to do is we're going to treat this kind of almost like a belt loop. Alright, so there's our piece of denim. Alright, fold it in half like this, butt it up to the end of the belt, and we'll stitch it across, and then we'll just fold that up like that, and top stitch down. I'm going to do each piece in process, so you'll see it, and I'll zoom in really tight and you'll see exactly what I mean. So I am going to zoom in and show you these properly very, very close up, but basically working from left to right, I've got the handle sewn on, I've got the loop pinned on, bumped right up against the handle end. I've got it stitched across here to actually secure it, and then all I've done is flipped it up and top stitched it down. Now obviously when I come in closer you'll see it much better, but you could of course choose to do contrast top stitching here. I've just done it up and down both sides. You can go across, you can do a crisscross box thing, you can do whatever you like. I want it to be really kind of minimal, so I've just done it up and down the sides here. So now let's zoom in so you can see it nice and close. So here you can see what I mean. I've actually used white top stitching threads so you can see it, and I've zigzagged it, and honestly it's a mess. It's a nightmare to sew this woven stuff. You can't get a nice clean seam, but that's okay because we're going to cover it. So if you move on to the next one, you can see I've got my loop here. It's free on both, you can put your fingers through it like that, it's still an open loop, but I've bumped the edge of the loop right up to the cut edge of the handle and pinned that into position. And then if you move along here, you will see that I've stitched it straight across there, 3/8 of an inch, easy peasy. And to finish it off, I've just done that, I've flipped it up. I've flipped it up and I've sewn it up and down the sides here. So that's it, that's our belt, that's how they go on when you're using belts as handles and you want to cover the bottom piece of it like this. So I'm going to go off and complete these 4, and then I'm going to do the next part of it, which is the zipper and the kind of front and back pocket areas. Now, after all the excitement of using belts for a crossbody strap and using leather for a kind of pre-made strap, we are now going to do the method that is shown in the pattern envelope. Really important that you know that, but it's one of those things once you see it, it's like, oh, please, I can do that, because you really can. It's not so tricky at all. Once again, we'll get close-ups on this, but let me do this kind of from this distance so I can chit-chat you through it. You will start with, I'm just going to make one, because I'm not actually using these, I'm using the other ones that we've done. You will start with a strip of your fabric, your handle fabric, and on the back of it, you will apply a strip of interfacing. There are pattern pieces for both of these, and in the instructions it says centre it up, and you can see it's right in the middle, even especially taking note of these gaps on the end. They're very, very key. Now, you've done that, and then you're going to press it, the fabric, into the middle like this. Again, there'll be close-ups. And then you have your handle backing, leopard print, why not? If you're using a normal, like a woven fabric, you're going to turn the edges in 3/8 of an inch. If you're using a non-fray fabric, maybe a lighter weight faux suede or faux leather or a felt or something, just trim the seam allowances off because it won't fray and you don't need to do it. And so that's going to lay on top of that. So what I'm going to do is bring it up close to show you properly, and then I will join the short ends and you'll see how it all works. Okay, method 3. This is the handle that we're doing that's exactly as is in the pattern. So we've applied our interfacing to the centre, it's all centred up, and we've applied our handle backing. Don't forget this is fabric, so we've turned the ends under 3/8 of an inch. If it's not a frayable fabric, you just trim them off. Join it, 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimetre seam as always, and then flip it out. And you will find that, I don't know if you can see that properly, you will find that the handle backing is actually a little bit shorter than the handle. This is as it should be, because when you kind of settle them equally, you find you will get this. This part here has no interfacing in it. This is a good thing, because that is the part that you're going to sew the handle onto the bag through. So now what I'm going to go and do is I'm going to go and do some contrast top stitching, not because I'm particularly wanting to do contrast top stitching, I'm not, but you can see it there, and I will show you how I will top stitch it down and stop, and then how it's going to look when it's on the bag. So this is how your handle looks like when you've prepared it. You've sewn all the way down to the end, stopping when you get to your non-interfaced part. If you follow the stitch marks on the pattern, you will not go far wrong. You stop basically before the little box of stitching. So top stitch along both ends, that holds down the lining either side, which looks really good. And once you've done that, you're going to apply it onto your bag. Well, I'm just doing this as a test for you, so I'm just going to apply it to a sample. And so I have There it is. I've continued my stitching down from the belt here where it stops, from the handle, sorry, here where it stops, down into a box shape around here and then crisscross. And that's it, that's your handle done exactly as it is in the pattern. So now, doesn't matter which method of handles you've chosen, the handles are on. The handles are on for sure. So you might have done the purchased handles, they're just easy to sew on, you just sew them on and you're good. You might have done a slightly more complex one using purchased belts, which of course gives you the option, if you want, of having a much longer strap to wear as a crossbody, or just like a low slung shoulder bag, whatever you like. I have to say, this method as well, with tabs covering up the attachment stitching for the leather straps, it's also very good if you're not very confident about working with leather, if you're like, oh, it's going to mess up, because you know, as soon as you put a needle through leather or suede, the hole is there for good. So if you're not so confident about doing stuff like that, that's a really good thing to do, absolutely. So that's method number 2. Or you might have gone for the classic method as detailed in the pattern instructions. Doesn't really matter which one you've chosen. The important thing is that your handles are on before we go to the next part. Okay, so now we've got our fronts and our backs of our tote done, we just need to do a couple of really simple steps to complete the tote body. First thing to do is to join your upper strip onto the tote body, the front and back piece. And you want to do it here and here. 2 short little seams, and you have to do that next. You can't go back and do it later. That has to be done next. And what I've done to make life easier is I've just used a little hair tie to kind of control or corral my handles. I have lots of hair ties in my house, of course, because I took the precaution of having a little girl with very long hair, so I'm good. But if not, just use some scotch tape or something to keep them out of the way. So, upper strap on, and when it's on, here is what it will look like. So I can pull this around here for you. Now, if I pull this up, let's get the handle out of the way. See that opening there? That's your front or back pocket, and that edge there is the edge where your zipper's going to be on. So once you put both upper straps on, here's what you're going to do. You're going to join the front and the back from the base up to the start of the zipper allowance. And then you're going to press the whole thing open. This will be 3/8 of an inch. When you get to the zipper allowance, it's going to be 3/4 of an inch. You're going to press it all the way through, and then you will see that the tote is, I mean, it's almost done. It just needs the zipper in and facings around the pockets in the bottom, and it's done. Okay, so now it's time to put the zipper in. You can see we've got kind of quite a bag shape already. And we need quite a long zipper for this, and of course it's always very tricky to buy a nice long zip, so I bought 2 shorter zips and joined them at the top. And because the 2 shorter zips that I could get were actually separating, I put a little fabric kind of stopper across there to stop the zipper pull going off and separating when it really doesn't need to do so. So I'm going to pin it in one side. I really want this so that the teeth don't really show, but if they do, it's not the end of the world. But I'll pin it in one side and I'll sew it in the other side, and you will see how it should look when it's inserted into the tote. Okay, so I've got the zipper pinned in on one side here, and I've got it sewn in on the other side, and you can see there's just one line of stitching there. We haven't top stitched the zipper yet. It's still kind of got a little bit of give along the tape. We won't be top stitching it till we put the lining in, because that's like one of the things that you just do. So I've got now my kind of double length zipper. I'm going to go and complete that. Woo, turning it out, crazy stuff. I'm going to go and complete that, and then I've got to do the facings for the front and back pockets. Okay, so kind of gratuitous close-up shot here. Here is the side where the zipper is sewn on. You see that with the nice metal teeth? Oh, lovely. And this is the side where it's just pinned onto the tape. So you can see, even when it's sewn on, it's only sewn through one thickness. Oh, with lots of threads. Loads and loads and loads of threads. Get rid of those. Sewn through like that. It hasn't been top stitched down like that yet. We're going to do that later when the lining is in, not just yet. So I'm going to complete the zipper. The zipper will be in, and its facings. And I think we're almost there. Okay, on the home straight now of constructing the tote body, and you can see all the debris on my table. There's been lots of threads being snipped off. Oh well, what the heck. So here's what we've got to so far. Looks a bit strange, I know, but here we've got handle, we've got front pocket opening, we've got zipper that zips together at the top, because that's 2 zippers joined together. We've got back pocket opening, and then we've got back handle. So our tote body is almost done. Now here's what we're going to do. We are going to add the facings to the front and back pocket openings. That's here. And if you look at them, you will see, let me just tuck that handle out of the way if I can. Okay, if you look at them, you will see you've got a short strip and a much longer one. And surprise, surprise, that's what you've got with the facings, a short strip and a much longer one. When you join them, you will get a loop. Of course you will. And your job now is to match those up, is to match them short to short and long to long. Your only piece to be careful about is this corner. Obviously you're going to sew it right to the corner and pivot and go round 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimetre, pin, base, you know, clip, whatever you need to do to get it to sit properly. But it's easy to do. Just match those seams up, seam on the facing to seam on the back, seam on the facing, seam on the back, all the way around here. I'm going to do the both of them, and you'll also be edge stitching, and you'll see it when it comes back. You'll kind of go, oh, okay, it's getting near, it's almost there, and it is. Now, I have put in one of the facings, and before I show you what it looks like, I'm going to quickly explain something to you, and I will actually come in very, very close and show you this close up. The facing has to kind of go round corners. When you get to this part here, you're going to have to kind of stop it and start it and pivot. And when you have finished it, you go in and clip the seams. When I come in close, you'll see what I mean. You'll see exactly what I mean. So that's the facing, and I'll show you the other side where I've actually put the facing in. And as soon as you put the facing in, you can see it starts to become extremely bag-like. I think we can agree. Like that. It starts to become very much like the tote that it should be. Now, I'm going to, like I say, zoom in and show you the stitch line, and then I'll put the other facing in, and we're kind of almost done. And I was going to put the bottom of the bag in today, which strictly speaking I should do now, but it can go in later, and I'm going to put it in later because I think we need more, for filming purposes, we need more kind of, you know, ability to open it up wide. So we'll put the bottom in at the last section of this, when we're putting the whole thing together. So for now, let me put the other facing in, but first let's come in close and see exactly what I mean. Now, try as I might, I cannot actually get the camera in tight enough when I'm sewing this to show you, so I've had to mark it up, but it's actually quite easy to see. This is the short part of the front or back pocket. That's the bit that corresponds to the upper strip. Well, that actually is the upper strip. And what I like to do when I'm joining the facing to it is I like to join the short facing to this piece first. And I start at this corner here, all the way along to here, and stop. And then I go in. Is that diagonal line I've drawn? This one here. That's where you snip. And then you can flip the larger one round and go all the way around the other way. It's really the only way that you can do it, because if you don't, it's not going to fit perfectly. When you do that, when you clip into that corner, it fits beautifully. And that is when you get this effect here with your facing in there. So yeah, that's how I'm going to do it. That's how I did this one. That's how I'm going to do that one. And that is how I suggest you do yours. So now we've put both our facings in. You can see it's looking a lot more kind of tote-like. Don't forget we've got our long kind of cross-body length straps on this one, made from belts. Of course, don't forget as well that we did the other two methods, so you choose which method is right for you. As I said previously, I was going to put the bottom in, bottom of the stiffening, but I think really for the sake of filming, that we'll find it easier for you guys to see inside when we come to join all the linings and stuff. So it can go in later, it's really not the end of the world. However, that's what we've got so far. I think we can agree it's looking rather lovely. Yes, yes it is. Don't forget we've got our zipper in as well. I keep saying don't forget, of course you're not going to forget. You've been watching it all the way through, really. Yeah, zipper in here, which is open for our central section. Yeah, that's it. Next time, part 3, we're not even considering the body of the tote. Next time, part 3 of the Red-Hot Mama sew-along, we'll be doing the pockets and the lining, the multi-pockets from the multi-pocket tote title. So yeah, lots of pockets, lots of fun, but lots of quick and easy ways to do them as well, because you want many pockets, but you don't want to be spending days and days and days and days doing it. So that's it. Hope it's been instructive. See you at the next part.